Looking for a place to call your own, where the sun shines bright and the seeds are sown. Portugal, it's the place to be. Join the community, come and see. Expats Portugal.
Hola, boa noite. Carl Munson here for Expats Portugal Thursday evening, and our very special webinar tonight. We are learning Portuguese in real life with our beloved Filomena Pascoal, who will be teaching us, who has been teaching us Portuguese language and culture. And tonight we're learning in real life language, culture, and lived experience. And you'll be hearing from some of the people who've taken part in her teaching sessions as well. It's not about avoiding mistakes, but fortunately, it's not about avoiding mistakes, but about learning through them together. That's what we'll be doing tonight. You might have found yourself in a cafe where you've ordered a torrada, the toast, and you've ended up with a bullfight, the torrada, or worse still, a dourada, a gilt-headed bream. But, you know, you just eat it anyway, don't you, and stay polite. What really matters is not the mistake, but the effort to speak Portuguese and keep learning. So that's the spirit in which we will be working this evening. Filomena is here, and she'll be explaining why Portuguese can feel so challenging, even or especially for adult learners, and why effort matters so much in Portuguese culture. So consistency and effort. Trying, even when it feels uncomfortable, is noticed by the Portuguese people and appreciated, and it often opens doors that perfect grammar never could. That's worth knowing, isn't it? Tonight, we'll explore why Portuguese mix-ups happen and why they're part of the learning, as we've mentioned, and how they can be enjoyed in a strange sort of way. When mistakes become great icebreakers and learning moments, how language and culture shape everyday life in Portugal. Honest stories of struggles, small wins, and growing confidence. And we'll have some of our participants who've been learning with Filomena talking this evening, and how learning together helps people keep going and helps them to enjoy the process. So hopefully we'll listen, laugh, and learn this evening. Let's bring her onto the screen now. Filomena, hola boa noite. It's official, right? It's dark.
Hola boa noite. Boa noite, because it's dark now.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that, Stephen. A very keen student, I'd say, who joined us a little bit earlier on as we were getting ready, and he'll be back later. James and Stephen will be chatting with us about their experience of working with you, Filomena. How are you this evening? Tudo bem?
Tudo bem, obrigada. Muito ocupada, mas tudo bem.
Muito ocupada e muito chuva aqui in Portugal. It remains wet in the run-up to the Portuguese presidential election. An interesting week for Portuguese culture. Maybe we'll have time to talk about that this evening. We say good evening to Debbie, Catherine, Robert, Laurie, George, Christian, Diana, who are all in the chat, La Ronda as well, Andrew Pedder. Good evening to you all. Keep those comments coming, and I'll put a few of them on the screen so that you can feel part of what we're doing this evening. Filomena, tell us about this evening and what you'd like to share with us.
Well, as you said, I mean, I'm also eager to listen to the stories that people have to tell about the episodes that where they were speaking Portuguese and something went a little bit different than what was expected. I also have a few of those stories with people that tell me what happened, and
Brilliant.
yeah, so I think we might laugh a little bit with those stories.
Yeah, I think that helps with the learning, doesn't it? Let me go back to those pointers that I was talking about earlier on in the intro. Adult learners do struggle with Portuguese, and I think it's fair to say there's a general recognition, is there not, that it is not an easy language to learn. Would you like to say a little bit about that and how it is that adult learners do struggle with the language?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Portuguese is not an easy language. That's true. It's not an easy language. And to learn something new when you are an adult is always worse than when you are young. I mean, in terms of the things you are able to memorize, and also because as a child, for example, when you learn something as a child, you are not worried about making mistakes, right? You learn and you try and you make a mistake, but okay, and then you learn, and then you try again. But adults, they have this curious thing. They are afraid of making mistakes, and then they don't try. Lots of times they don't try, and that's the main thing. I mean, you
Yeah.
you, you shouldn't worry about making mistakes. It's a lot better to speak in Portuguese with mistakes rather than not speak Portuguese at all, because people really appreciate the Portuguese really appreciate when people try, at least try, to speak the language, because we are in Portugal. The official language is not English, it's Portuguese. So
Just in
you
case
can't
anyone
expect.
was in any doubt, we know that in certain parts of Portugal, as soon as people see you coming, they'll start speaking English, which gives you a false sense of security, perhaps, as well. So, yes, just a quick note, Portuguese is the official language of Portugal. European Portuguese, that is, for those of
Yes,
you.
European Portuguese, yes.
European Portuguese. What, dwelling on the embarrassment for a moment, and perhaps we can show some extra compassion to people who've moved here. There's a lot going on, isn't there? They've got all of their moving processes. They're brand new in a new culture, so
Mhm.
they might be feeling extra self-conscious, and that's the problem, isn't it? You know, when we're kids, we just say things and we get corrected, and people are a lot kinder. And so we do, but you do understand. People understand, don't they, that it is difficult. You've got a lot going on. You're in an entirely new culture. You've uprooted your life, and the last thing you perhaps want to feel is embarrassed in a public situation in your new town, in your selected cafe.
It's not a question of embarrassment, because when people, for example, when they laugh because you said something funny for them, it was funny.
Yes.
It was genuinely funny. I mean, it's not, they are not laughing at you, they are just laughing because the situation was funny. But
Yeah.
people think that, oh my god, they are laughing at me, and then uh, they are embarrassed, they feel embarrassed, but they shouldn't, because it's just you know a normal situation. It's nothing out of this world, and so as I said, it's the difference between being conscious of your mistakes and when you are a baby or a young child and you are not conscious of
Yeah.
of everything that you say wrong, and you don't care, and when you are an adult you do care, and you shouldn't. I mean, because
Yeah.
the most important is trying.
Yes, yeah. It's a bit like dance like nobody's watching, sing like nobody's listening, and speak Portuguese as though you were 3 years old, maybe. And
Yes,
because that's what you
yeah.
are in linguistic terms.
That is what you are. Yes, yeah.
Right.
And
Fantastic.
there
And
is
yeah,
no
you,
and that there is no problem of being, a young child speaking Portuguese. It's no problem as long as you speak. That's the main point.
and transform those alchemical linguistic moments from mistakes into learning experiences. That's the mindset we're hoping to cultivate this evening. And as you said, a bit of effort goes a long way.
Mhm.
Making the effort is important, right? Could you say a bit more
Yeah.
about that here within Portuguese culture?
Yes, of course, because there are some, or there used to be. Now the attitude is changing, but in the area where I live, Miranda do Corvo, district of Coimbra, we have always had lots of British people coming to live around here. And let's say 20 years ago, they wouldn't even bother to learn the language. And so they
Is
just
that right?
assume that everybody should speak English, and of course this attitude is not very well accepted in the community, because, as I said, our language is Portuguese, is not English, and some, of course, lots of people speak English, and we all learn English at school, but lots of older people that didn't go to school for so long, they didn't even learn any foreign language, and so there are people who don't speak English, and they 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 are not very happy that if you are living, especially of course as a tourist, you don't have to learn the language, but if you are living in the country, um, you should try to understand what's going on, because
Yeah.
even if you are sitting at a cafe and people are speaking around you and you don't have the slightest idea what's going on, and I'm not mentioning other people's lives, but I mean, if
Come
if
on,
they
name them and shame them.
you never know what is going on around you. I think it must be very, you know, disappointing not
Yeah,
to know what.
isolating.
For example, if you see signs that you don't have the slightest idea what they mean, you know,
Yes.
I think because okay, I know other languages, and when I visit other countries, I usually understand. But of course, I have also been in countries like in Turkey or in Greece or in Bulgaria or Romania or other countries where I don't speak the language. And okay, we know that if you don't speak the language, at least if you speak English, you can find always someone who speaks English. But as I said, I went to those countries as a tourist, not to
Yes.
live there.
Not to
Because
settle
if I
down.
moved to one of those countries, I think I had the need to learn. Yeah.
Well, and it can be expensive as well. When the letter comes from Finances or don't park here, it can cost you money too. Right. Let's go a little bit into
Yes,
the.
I know of a story that someone didn't understand the sign, and the car was not there when they returned from a week's holiday, and the
That's
car was
worth
not
knowing
there.
about. That's definitely some vocab worth learning, isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
Psychologically, linguistically, what is it about Portuguese that people will feel challenged by then, Filomena? Why is it so difficult, do you think?
Well, first of all, because if you compare to an easy language like English, in terms of the structure,
Yeah.
it is an easy language. Because, for example, the verbs. Let's give the examples of the verbs. In English, you know one word and you know almost everything about the verb, right? So I go, you go, and we go, and they go. It's almost everything is the same except he goes. But
Go,
even
go,
in the
go.
past, it's always went. So I went, you went, he went, he went, she went, we went.
Yeah.
It's always the same.
Now you
But
mention it. Yeah.
not in Portuguese. In Portuguese, you have several, of course, as in English, you have several tenses of the verb, but each person, so each subject, I or you or he or we or they, change the word. So the word changes in every subject. So you have to know either if they are irregular verbs and you have to know the different word, or you have to know how to end the verb. So because lots of times um, native speakers, especially native speakers, we don't start the sentence with the subject. We don't say eu or we don't say nós, because the verb itself already tells you, the ending already tells you what are we speaking about. So if it's I live or we live or you live, the verb itself tells us at the end of the way we pronounce the end or we write the end, tells us who it is about. But uh, so comparing to English, this is a very big difference. Also because in English everything is the so there is no difference between a masculine thing or a
Mm.
feminine thing. Whereas in Portuguese, you have almost everything you have to consider if it's a masculine word or a feminine word. So it makes it a bit harder for someone who is not used to those. For example, a German learning Portuguese, it becomes a little bit easier because in German they also have masculine and feminine and neutral, but it doesn't mean then that the objects or the things that are masculine in German, they are not necessarily the same masculine in Portuguese, so they also have to memorize. But they already have that notion of masculine and feminine. But the English speaking people they don't, because they can't understand why is something masculine and what is the use of it.
Or to put it another way, why do they have to make it so difficult? But
Yes.
difficult it is, and you're here to help us. And we'll talk to James, Stephen, and Vicky in a while, who have been learning and find out about their experience. But just want to sort of touch on the basics really and help people prepare themselves for learning more and engaging. So key lesson, try not to be embarrassed, and effort goes a long way. It is more difficult than you're probably used to, and it can be a little bit more difficult when you're older and you're not a kid anymore. And you know, people do say, don't they? You know, it's a struggle to learn as you get older. I don't know how much truth there is in that, and people have different learning styles and different abilities. Is there anything else that you want to say in terms of the context of this conversation this evening, and how people can prepare themselves for a happy life here in Portugal, speaking Portuguese and engaging?
I think if you really want to learn, I think you have to immerse yourself as much as possible into everything that is Portuguese. You should listen to Portuguese music, and we don't just have fado, okay? There is a lot more music than fado, but
Really?
listen to listen to Portuguese music. Watch Portuguese television, even if you don't particularly like the program, but try to find something that you might like I don't know, if you want a more cultural thing, or a soap opera or something. But try to listen, because the essential here is listen as much as possible, because your ear needs the training. You really need to train your ear to listen to the sounds, because we have lots of sounds that you don't have in English. So sometimes we say, and sometimes when I explain, okay, this sounds like this and that sounds like that, and then people go, it looks exactly the same to me, it sounds exactly the same. It's not, the sound is a different one. And so you have to practice that, because you don't know the difference between those sounds. So your ear needs training. And the only way is listening and listening and listening. And I'm not saying that you will understand when you listen, right? I mean, one thing is listen, and another is understand. Of course, at first you won't understand. But it's important, even if you don't understand, it's important that you keep listening. And then in the long run, you will start to get more vocabulary, and you will be able to distinguish the sounds, and also the speed that people speak. And so I think it's a very important aspect to listen as much as you can.
And that's the key word there, being immersion. Find a way in which you can surround yourself with the sounds of Portuguese, because the point was made earlier on about, you know, before you come, you could read a book about grammar, and you could learn it technically, theoretically in your head. And then the reality, we're talking about learning this in real life, aren't we? It might be entirely different. And so there's no substitute. And people, you know, do have a bit of a rude awakening with that. Then they've learned something on their you know, listening back on some sort of language lesson. But then coming and hearing it in real life is very different, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, we know the very, very simple example of obrigado, right?
Yes.
You can read the word obrigado, and then nobody is going to tell you obrigado, right? They can say obrigado.
What's wrong with that person who's enunciating perfectly in the cafe? Oh, they're a foreigner. Yes, I know. I heard that this morning. Yeah, it was just like obrigado, rather than how you taught in the books. Absolutely. Yeah. And Robert's saying, Carl, you didn't do that right. No, I didn't. I have immersed myself. I've been happy to make a fool of myself, as you've seen many a Thursday evening here. And I think Filomena is absolutely right about that. You know, be prepared to make a fool of yourself. The earlier example given, can you decode that for us? How you might go and ask for some toast and end up with a bullfight or a fish?
Yes,
in
because
the cafe?
the word bullfight is tourada, tourada. and the toast is torrada.
Massive difference.
Torrada.
Yeah.
So torrada, torrada. But of course, if you don't know how to pronounce the word correctly, then you might end saying torrada or something like that. And then, especially because you find hard to say the r, right? So torrada, torrada. And then if you don't say the r, then it becomes torrada, torrada, which is the bullfight.
And the dorada is the
And
bream.
the dorada, yes, dorada.
Which is
again because it's easier for you to pronounce the like dorada rather than saying turrada, right? Turrada. It's
we
hard
will be
for
practicing this. Let's do some live practice this evening as well. We'll talk to James, Stephen, and Vicky in just a moment. Go on, sorry, Filomena. Carry on.
And by the way, sorry to interrupt, but by the way, there are several ways of producing that r. In Lisbon, for example, they pronounce the r with their throat, so they say r. Here in central Portugal, in Coimbra area, for example, where the best Portuguese is spoken,
obviously,
we have the oldest university, so. So the pronunciation here is with our tongue. We just vibrate our tongue like rrr, right?
Excellent.
So it doesn't matter how you do it, either with your tongue, with your throat. It doesn't matter, but
do it.
Or
do it. Okay. Will these help? I'm having some. Yeah, okay. Dr. Bayard can help as well. They can sponsor your guttural pronunciation. Just a quick share here. I notice you've got a heater in your room there, and this reminds me of one of my first mistakes that I made. That is a heater, isn't it? Over to your right hand side.
It is because you know that I have moved from the office I had in the center of the town, and in the center where I had the office. I had absolutely no heating system, nothing, because it's an old building. It's in the center of the town, so it's the oldest part of the town, and there is absolutely no heating, central heating, nothing. And so I had this one, this one here, and so I brought it. Of course, I brought everything to my house because now I work from home, and. Sometimes although I have central heating, I also have central in my house. I have central heating, but sometimes when I feel a little bit colder, I press the button and.
Well, the reason I mention it, Filomena, is because it reminds me of my own early embarrassing situation. As hard as it is to imagine a hot day in Portugal at the moment, blistering heat, and I was sent out to buy for the evening time a dehumidifier. And I thought I'd done that at a shop called Jom. And because my Portuguese wasn't as good as we're endeavoring to have people speak Portuguese this evening, I came back with a humidifier, which is what that is as well. That humidifies, doesn't it? Instead of I thought I'd got a bargain. I thought I'd got a €90 dehumidifier, and I'd come back with a heater on a hot day. Mrs. M wasn't best pleased with that. So that's another reason why it's good to learn Portuguese. Right. Anything else you want to say before we bring on our happy students?
I think no. I think no.
Before we do, a little bit of an advertisement here, and we'll see you, Vicky, Stephen, and James, right after this. Only good homes at Kippertree. They're only good Portuguese homes. Hello, Vicky. Hello, James. Hello, Stephen. But a magic of showbiz. Here they are, magically on the screen. Wow. Thank you so much for joining us. Can we do a quick sort of check-in with you? Where are you in Portugal? And your level of Portuguese. Vicky, let's start with you.
I'm in Lessa da Palmeira, Porto.
Okay, in Porto, up in the north.
We've been here for 4 years. We got here September 2021 when there's this slightly open window that then very much began. But that was okay because we're here. And we came from, and when we first got here, we we're immersed in renovating a house. So, and of course, 95% of the people that were renovating the house did not speak English, which was fine because you use a translator and you figure it out. And I was an architect in the States, so materials do the same thing. So then we took a class for about a year at International House with a lovely, lovely woman. And but I think most importantly, what I do is every morning we listen to either Euronews or something that's Portuguese-based news programs. And they're talking and you're reading along in Portuguese. Another thing, on Sunday mornings, there's this wonderful channel that there's this gentleman who he's like an art historian from Portugal. And I put the phone up to it to translate, and wonderful story. So there's a variety. I absolutely think there's a variety of ways, but I'm not hell-bent on getting the certificate tomorrow. I'm interested in learning about the country and being part of what the culture is. We live in a neighborhood where it's a neighborhood where my neighbors are Portuguese, and but we've all kind of we learn to speak with one another, and more you hear the words and you hear more of them, and it comes.
Fantastic. Thank you for that intro there. A model student by the sound of it there, Filomena, doing all the right things, the immersion and making connection and not being in a hurry.
As I said, it's important to listen as much as possible.
Yeah. And Euronews TV, a great way of doing that. Everybody's on their Vodafone or Mayo package has probably got the Portuguese TV, right? So that's a free gift, right? But that comes with your internet. James, good evening to you. Thank you so much for being here. Lovely to see you, long-standing member of Expats Portugal. How are you doing? We can see you're in Estoril, Cascais. How would you describe your Portuguese or your grasp of the language?
Pretty poor after 3 years, relatively speaking. The problem with living in Estoril, Cascais area is everybody speaks English here. It's a very touristy place. It's very close to Lisbon. As a matter of fact, you can get to Lisbon on the train in about 20 minutes or so from here. So there is a lot of tourism here. So a lot of English is spoken everywhere. There are a huge number of expats here in Cascais. So it's hard to sometimes find a way to just converse in Portuguese. I try and do it with shop owners and cafes and bakeries and pastelerias and all of that good stuff. But
congratulations, he pronounced pasteleria very well. That is a mistake that sometimes people do, isn't it, Carl?
Yes, if it's food, I'm going to get it right.
Yeah, you're following That's another good strategy, isn't it? Follow what you love. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I figure that if I order in Portuguese and I get what I order, I figure I'm doing pretty well. Even though they answer back to me in English, I will consistently try and speak whenever I can, whatever I can in Portuguese, even though they're speaking to me in English.
That's
and
another
sometimes
really
they will actually reply back to me in Portuguese to maybe kind of correct me or to try and understand what they said.
Yeah.
And in that case, I will repeat it back to them again, closer, trying to mimic how they say it.
Yeah.
So that's my lesson as I walk around town eating pastries and pastel de nata and all those other good stuff.
There are worse ways of learning, aren't there? That sounds pretty good to me. A free lesson with every pastel de nata.
Exactly.
Brilliant. And something I noticed there, James, as well, is generally speaking, people are quite harsh on themselves about their grasp of the language. But often people know more than they realize or are willing to, well, not willing to admit, but we know more than we think. Is that a fair thing to say, Filomena?
Yes, definitely. I mean, people sometimes think, and I have because I have been teaching Portuguese to foreigners for the last 11 years. And so sometimes a text, for example, I present a text, and then at the end, if I ask, okay, did you understand the text? And they just go, no. But then if we go one sentence at a time, they know, they know that vocabulary. They already have seen that before. And if I say, okay, just this sentence, what is it? And then they say it, and then, okay, next sentence, what is it? And they say it, and then in the end, I said, you see, it's just because it becomes a blank in your head, right? You see a text and you think, oh my God, I don't understand that at all, because it's a text, I can't understand. But you do, and of course, you are able to identify a lot more vocabulary than the one that you can produce, right? So it's easier to understand when you read, especially when you read, it's easier to understand than when you want to say something, because when you want to say something, you have to work out the proper structure to say, and the vocabulary and everything together, the present tense or the past tense or everything. Mm-hmm. So it's hard, but you do know more than what you think you do.
Yeah. And that negative self-talk is such a rascal, isn't it? The little voices in the head. I can't do this. I'll never get this.
Yes,
I don't know very much. Often untrue.
Yes.
Thank you, James. We'll come back to you. We're going to come back for some funny stories and further insight into your linguistic journey. Let's talk to Stephen now. Stephen, not far from me, and San Martino de Porto that you can see behind me there. How are you this evening?
Silver Coast boys, eh?
We are the Silver Coast Massive, and we're here this evening. How's it going for you? How long have you been here, and how's your journey of Portuguese going?
We actually started to kind of live here on the 26th of December, as Brits would call it, Boxing Day.
Yes.
Yeah. We're here on a long stay visa, and we've got an interview with AMA on the 3rd of March for residency in Coimbra. And so prior to that, we've been visitors to Portugal for about 23 years.
Oh, wow.
We came here on holiday to the Algarve. We went to Albufeira, didn't like it, but kind of we thought there's got to be more to it than that. So we came back the following year, went to Tavira, loved it, went back to Tavira again and again. And then after about 3 or 4 years of doing that, we decided to branch out and discover the rest of Portugal.
Brilliant.
So yeah, 23-year love affair with this country.
And in those 23 years, did you pick up much vocabulary, or did you do what Filomena was saying? Is like, we don't live here, we're tourists, we don't have to learn too much. Did you pick much up in that time?
What I did was I learned the basics. So, obrigado, bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, a conta, asking for the bill in Portuguese, just some basic stuff, desculpe. Obviously, because you're always having to apologise.
Yes, and because you're British, yeah.
Yeah, commonly sense that just the little basic things like that,
Very good.
But then once we got serious about Portugal and decided that we'd like to retire here, and we came to that conclusion in 2014, but we had to work for another 11 years after that. So it's been a slow build-up, And of course, most of our time has been in the UK. So you come here for a couple of weeks. We've got a house here, and we've been every time we come here. We don't have a holiday now. It's working on the house all the time. And of course, now we're here for a long time. We're still working on the house. But what I do now is that every time we go out to a shop, the market, for a meal, for a few drinks sort of thing, I talk Portuguese all the time.
Great.
And another example is we've driven down from Santander to here about 6 times in the car over the last few years, and we all stop overnight in a place called Vila Famoso. Now, there's not many people in that town speak English, so again, you have to speak Portuguese. And what I love about the Portuguese people, for anyone who's nervous about having a go, they've got a great sense of humor, and they do want to help you, but you can have fun while you're doing it, you know. And they also actually want you to teach them a few English words as well. Fantastic. So my neighbour across the road, who's, you know, senior gentleman, and I was speaking Portuguese to him, the basic stuff, you know, bom dia, tudo bem, that sort of thing. The other morning I said bom dia to him, and he said to me in almost perfect English, good morning. And so he's obviously learned that from somewhere. He's picked it up, and it took my breath away. Good morning,
maybe. Yes.
So it's kind of it's a mutual benefit. You know, it can be mutually beneficial.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I had a mal dia today because there's so much rain here. I said bon dia to the lady in the cafe. She said, "No, mal dia." I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's a new one.
So good, Stephen.
So I was walking. We got a convenience store about 200 meters up the road from the house, and I was walking up there one morning this week, and one of the other neighbours across the road, who doesn't live there all the time, but we've always waved to each other. And I walked past his house, and he was outside because Mayo were putting up a new fibre optic cable to his house. And as I walked past him, I said bon dia, and he said bon dia back. But then he said he took me by surprise, because I'm used to Stubine or Turbine, you know, I'm used to that, but he just said a really short version of it, and he went bang, and it took me completely by surprise, and I thought, see, I just went see, and then as I walked past him, I thought, what did he say to me? Was he just saying good, or was he saying your flies are down or something? I mean, what was he saying? And I thought, what have I just agreed to? I just said yes to something. And it worried me while I was walking up to the shop. And while I was in the shop, I was still thinking about it. And then on the way back, I looked down the road and I thought, has he gone yet? And I thought, oh, no, he's not. So, right, I've got to go walk past him again. I hope he doesn't say anything else to me, because I'm still thinking, but I'm sure he just said to me, Wayne, but he said it so crisply, and it's similar to how English people talk in England, isn't it? We don't. Nobody speaks perfect English. They all. Nobody says thank you. Everyone says cheers. You know.
Yeah.
And,
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't understand them sort of colloquialisms, it can take you by surprise a little bit.
And it's the immersion, the repetition of that then introduces you to that, and something you're never going to hear that in a book, are you? Or on a CD.
Or from an excellent teacher like Filomena. She's going to teach you. I mean, my next door neighbour, Pedro, next door, he does speak English, and sometimes he tries to teach me Portuguese to speak Portuguese, but he's a perfectionist, and if I get it slightly wrong, he tucks and he shakes his head, and we've stood in the garden for 5 minutes on one word, and I still think I get it wrong, which is I'm going to have a go at it. Churrasqueira.
Yeah, pretty good. So your wife's wondering what's going on. Stephen's just learning Portuguese in the garden again with a neighbour. He might be sometime. Very good. Thank you for that, Stephen. Let's hear some funny stories. Vicky was definitely nodding when you were talking about doing the house up, and I think that's just a labour of love, isn't it? That goes on forever with the renovation. Yep. Have you got a funny story, Vicky, or anything that's really helped you through humour and laughter to embed some of the language learning?
Well, I think constructing the house, and a lot of the laborers, you know, are not highly educated gentlemen, but they're craftsmen. And but of course they have their own dialect, right? Like construction, you have your own dialect. And so, you know, I would have said something sort of in book learning Portuguese, and they're like, look at you, like, what? But you'd get that in the States too. A laborer, you know, he'd like, what? You know, so, but right now I am working with a trainer. She doesn't speak English. I don't speak great Portuguese, but we sort of use it as a learning tool for both of us. And it's really a lot of fun, because, you know,
this is a fitness trainer, is it? Not a language trainer, a fitness trainer.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
wow. Okay. Yeah.
So it's really fun that way, because she's just not standing there counting to 10, right? She's getting something.
Very good.
So it's fun that way.
Very good. And did you inherit your cat, having come to Portugal as well? A Portuguese
No.
stray, or did you bring?
We came to Portugal with a Great Pyrenees dog and 5 cats.
Wow, I can hear one of them, I think. Wow, amazing. Vicky, do you have any advice then for other learners? What would be your top tips?
Well, from listening to some of people's conversations, not here, but in our class, and they would get really uptight, and I'd say don't worry about it. Sometimes I'll use the expression, I grew up in the Northeast, and anytime one goes to the South, you think, what are you saying? So, or my husband loves the English Premier League, but you're listening to some of the interviews and you're like, what are they saying? So I think, give yourself a break. You're here to enjoy life, and so just enjoy it, and don't get all sucked into that, I've got to learn it by next August kind of thing. It just, I don't know, life is long, but I think it makes it fun. To be able
lifelong learning. Yes. Pace yourself, perhaps. Give yourself time, be patient, and see it as an unfolding. Because you said this before, Filomena, not all Portuguese people are speaking Portuguese perfectly. It's a sort of language where even Portuguese people continue to learn for the rest of their lives, right?
And make mistakes also. Lots of mistakes are made by the Portuguese. So sometimes when I teach an advanced level like B1 or so, and then people struggle with a part of grammar that is very hard, and then I tell them, lots of Portuguese don't know this, and they say, oh, okay. So because lots of Portuguese don't know everything perfectly as it happens in, I think, lots of other nationalities, not just the Portuguese, but there are people who don't know everything about the language, of course.
Yeah, so give yourself time, as Vicky says. Thanks, Vicky, for being here tonight. Much appreciated. James, any funny stories, any ways that humour has come in that's helped you, and what's your advice to people learning the language?
Well, my advice is take Filomena's course. It's one of the things that she taught us early on is that there's a whole lot that we already know, because a lot of the words in Portuguese may have a different ending, but the first part, the basis of the word is very similar to what it is in English. So that was very encouraging when you come in the first or second. I don't remember, it was the first or second.
It was the first lesson. Yeah.
The first lesson. That was encouraging to find out. Oh, I know all these Portuguese words already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm halfway there.
Yes, it's a real bonus, isn't it? Yeah. But those little wins are fantastic, aren't they? To have those little wins are very enjoyable along the journey. And as you say, you can enroll with Filomena, learn Portuguese with Filomena, A1 or A2, starting in February. So get signed up now at expatsportugal.com. Any other stories for you, James? Any funny stories or pickles you've got yourself into?
Well, I don't know whether it's funny. I learned early on not to pronounce the Portuguese word for bread.
How not to?
Right. I won't attempt it because I can't say it correctly, but it's.
No, I'm sure you do.
It's an indecent word if you pronounce it wrong.
Now, you have to do it like that, and then you pronounce it correctly.
Oh,
everybody.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very
good. Wow. Sounds like one of Vicky's cats.
Part of my problem is that other word that's not bread is actually half the name of a city that's nearby.
Oh my goodness!
Believe it or not.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I won't go to that city. So.
What, do you just pretend to be gluten intolerant everywhere you go now? Buy bread secretly.
I order lots of croissants. I don't order a lot of bread.
Okay, that's a bit extreme. That's a bit extreme.
That's my solution.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you what, James. I'll tell you what. Here, for example, if we don't want to say the word pão, we say another word. If you want a roll, okay, we call it bico, because usually those rolls that have two beaks, you know, two ends that are like,
That's true.
so we say bico, or imagine that I go to the bakery and I want 10 rolls. I say, there's bicos. There's bicos.
Wow, didn't know
So
that.
it's a lot easier to pronounce bico than pão, isn't it?
There you go.
Yes.
A workaround.
There you go.
To save embarrassment. Right. Okay. And was it serious? I mean, did you get yourself into much trouble with that, or is everything okay now?
No, they just look at you like, okay, this is just another American. They roll their eyes into the back of their head and just go help somebody else.
Right.
But I was actually not too long ago. I went into a gelato shop and in Portuguese I asked for 2 scoops of stracciatella ice cream, and she started speaking to me really fast in Portuguese, and I looked at her. I said, "Desculpe, não fala português ainda aprender," you know, like I'm still learning. And she went like this. She's literally, her face just like, her mouth dropped open. She said, "I'm sorry, I thought you were Cascalense," which means a local Cascais person.
How good is that?
And I just,
Very good,
I said, "Obrigado, you just made my whole day," because she understood me, number 1. I got my ice cream, number 2.
What a day.
And number 3, she
And
thought
you
I
spoke
was
like a
local.
local.
I
Man,
was like a
that is
local.
like, yeah, 3 big
Very-
ticks there. And that just goes to prove, doesn't it, a lot of what Filomena has been saying tonight, making an effort, and that rewarded you beautifully there by stepping out of your comfort zone and well, ice cream shop's not exactly a comfort zone. Well, it is a comfort zone, but you were inside it, right? And getting lots of positive feedback. Fantastic. Thank you, James, for being here tonight. Much appreciated. James, the Cascalense, I think you are officially now, according to the lady in the ice cream shop. Great. Stephen, any more funny stories or neighbours? What's your advice?
When we first got the keys to this house, we got here and we discovered that the previous owner had taken the gas bottles with him, and so we got no hot water. Yeah, so I looked on. We didn't know anything in the area, so I looked on Google Maps and I saw a Galp franchise in Alcabasa. So we drove down to the shop, but before we did, I went on Google Translate and I translated what I wanted to say in the shop to explain that we've got no gas bottles, the water's on gas, the the cooker's on gas, and I want a spare bottle as well. Plus, I want the pipes changing because they're looking a bit perished. Plus, we want to buy a fridge, freezer, and a washing machine. So I phrased all this and translated it using Google Translate onto a sheet of paper.
Yeah.
Went into the shop, went up to the counter, started to try and read it, and it wasn't made. And these 2 guys behind the counter stood there and they looked at me deadpan. And then they looked at each other. Then they looked back at me and they said, "What do you want?"
They're from Birmingham.
No, I'm going to say it in Portuguese.
Says, what is all that? And they took the piece of paper off me and they both stood there and looked at it. And they said, do you want some gas? I said, "Yes, please." And he says, "You got no hot water?" "No." Do you need a gas heater, a water heater?" I said, "No, there's one there, but we've got no gas for it." And then we went through everything in English. They spoke perfect English.
Yeah.
And you know, these guys, they were there at 9 o'clock the next morning with 3 gas bottles. They changed the pipes, and then later on in the day, they delivered a fridge freezer and a washing machine. You wouldn't get that service in England, I tell you now.
Beautiful. Wonderful.
That was excellent. But I'd gone to all this trouble to translate it. Tried to read it, but even though I was going, "Oh God, how do you say that? Oh my God, how do you say that?" And they just kind of just deadpanned me, looked at each other. You know, it was like something out of the 2 Ronnies or something.
Yeah, I can imagine the looks on their faces. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, but pronunciation is, sorry to interrupt, but pronunciation is also very important, because you might know the word you think you know how to pronounce the word, but if you don't pronounce the word correctly, people don't recognize. They don't, even if
No.
you think that you are pronouncing it the way it should be, but you are not. And sometimes people just say, but why don't Portuguese make an effort to understand? It's not a question of making an effort. It's really, it happens to me. I don't understand what people want to say if the word is not well pronounced. And because Portuguese is a language that is based on stress on the words. And so it's different from Spanish, for example, because in Spanish it doesn't happen. And so it's really important to stress the words in the right syllable, because otherwise we just don't recognize the words, and that's a big problem as well.
Yeah, that's quite something, and something again that shouldn't be taken personally. I mean, it's not like they understand you and are being difficult. Like, even, you know, the Mayor the Late, it took 5 years, I think, for anyone to ever be able to understand. I asked him for a Mayor the Late, and people looking back at me quizzically, then they say, Mayor the Late, and I think it's what I just said. And them it's not. And again, you know, one of these examples of don't take it personally, just roll with it and keep learning, as Vicky's saying as well. Love your renovation, Vicky. That's a beautiful ceiling. Is that part of the job you've done there?
Oh, no, the ceiling was here. You couldn't see it before.
Yeah.
There was no roof. The windows were all bashed in. It was labor of love, but I loved it. So
wonderful. Would love to see before and after pictures, maybe on the forum at Expats Portugal. That's another webinar evening.
Give people hope. Yes.
Yeah, a webinar special. You haven't been crushed by the renovation. You're still working away and loving it here in Portugal. Fantastic with the labour of love in Porto. Wonderful. Thanks, all of you. I don't want to stop you speaking or sharing anything. If there's anything else you'd like to share that is important for people learning the language. Stephen, I'm not sure if we got your advice to learners, perhaps.
I would say try and do the basics in Portuguese. So, like at the market, shopping, a bar or a restaurant, try and order your food in Portuguese. I mean, it's on the menu written in front of you, you know, as a bit of a guide. Just get into the habit of speaking it every day. So, for example, the convenience store up the road from me here, they don't speak English in there. I have to speak Portuguese when I go in there. And then sometimes when I, you know, or basic dialogue, they'll start a conversation with me, and that sort of, it's now that's the challenge. And you're trying to figure out, where do we go with this? I mean, for example, the other day I was up there and I was looking in the refrigerated part, and a lady had got her bag down on the floor, and she turned around and said to me, is Scorp, is the bag, is the sacco, is it in your way? I figured out what she said, because I know what sacco means and I know what Scorp means. And so it's that sort of thing. If you just do it, but like it's already been said, after a while, as James said, they think your level of Portuguese is better than it probably is. So it can lead on to a very intense conversation, which tends to be one way. But you know, but it's good for all of this is doing you good, and you'll absorb something for you. Walk away a bit, you know, wiser and more able.
Yeah, you can always learn. You can always learn something.
Absolutely, yeah.
Be open and take that lifelong learning approach. And every day's a school day.
Start with the basics, you know, and going into a shop, going into a market.
Yeah.
Even if you have to get Google Translate out and say, how do I ask for, you know? So you like você vende, do you sell? You know, and then whatever it is that you want to buy, if you don't know the word, have a look up, you know, the word for a cucumber on Google Translate if you don't know what it is. And just by doing that, you tend to find that it kind of sticks with you a bit, you know, because you've actually used it in a live situation. Whereas if you just stare at it in front of you, you know.
Yeah, and also
very good advice from all of you.
May I add that sometimes it's of course the translator is good, but sometimes it's not enough, because you have to understand that in one language one sentence is said like that, and in another language it's an expression, it's completely different. And for example, I don't know if we have time for another little story.
One more.
Because
One more
my student Norman, you know Norman Carl, is
Yes,
87
yes.
years old. He's my
Yes.
oldest student, and he's still learning. And he's a yoga teacher, or used to be, because now, I mean, he's still doing yoga, but he doesn't teach anymore. But he used to teach yoga in Portuguese. He always taught yoga in Portuguese. And he went to the translator to see how you would say at the end of the yoga lesson, take care, because the English would say take care, right? At the end to say goodbye. And he looked it up, care as cuidado. Of course, care can be cuidado, but if you at the end, because then he asked me, why do people look at me, you know, they stare at me when at the end of the lesson I go cuidado, and then they look at me so
They've been
weird.
relaxed.
Why? And I
Yes.
said, well, because what you are saying to them is be careful with some danger, you know, take care. Take
Yes.
care, and not in take care, it's be careful, right? So
Yeah.
cuidado,
Beware.
you are warning them to some kind of danger. So after a relaxed session of yoga, of course they are puzzled if you are warning about the danger.
Very good. So beware of translators from the point of view of taking a structure and a context that might not compute. Would it be
Yes,
fica
because
bem? Would that have been a better
fica
sign
bem,
off? Fica bem.
as a group, fiquem bem, fiquem bem. But never cuidado, never.
Never cuidado in that situation. Filomena, thank you so much. Perhaps a last word from you and an encouragement to everybody to enroll on the A1 or A2 and have some fun, as people have been having with you in these last few months, learning Portuguese in a fun way, in a light-hearted way, and with that Portuguese sense of humour and sense of discovery. And you can enroll with courses starting next month. Go to expatsportugal.com for
Yes,
that. Yeah, last word to you, Filomena.
Yes, we will begin 2 different courses now, because we have done one course. It was our first attempt, let's say, to see how it would go with expats. And so I decided, okay, I mean, I didn't know if people already knew a little bit of Portuguese. And so I thought maybe we can have an A1, A2 level, because I didn't know what people already knew. They might speak already a little bit. But in the end, for some people, it was a bit too hard, because we have seen lots of different things. And so this time, I have decided that it would be better, we have decided in Expats Portugal, that it would be better to have just an A1 course, so the very, very basic, and then the A2 for the ones that want to learn a little bit more. So it's not going to be like the last sessions, the 12 sessions that we had before in 2025, because now it's two different ways, either the very, very basic A1 or a little bit more for someone who, for the ones that are already not, they know a little bit, but they want to learn some more.
Like the guys on the screen tonight, yeah, absolutely.
So even for those who, and I know that some people who have attended the other lessons, some are also attending these courses now, because it's always a question of repetition. Is always good, repetition, and you learn with repetition. And
Yes.
So as we said before, everything counts. Every possible strategy that you have to learn is a good strategy. So some people are more talkative and they might speak to the neighbors, or to some people around them. Other people are not so extrovert, but everything that you can think of. For example, Norman, as I have mentioned, Norman is 87, as I said, almost 88 in March. And he decided now to start to write a diary in Portuguese. So
Wow, that's brilliant.
So he every day or almost every day, he writes a little bit about what he did and what he intends to do next week. And so that's also another approach of practicing his Portuguese, because he lives on his own. He doesn't have anyone to speak to in the village. He lives in a village, and so there aren't many people in the village. So that's a good thing also to practice.
Dear diary. Yep, he writes to himself. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And,
Okay, so
he writes to himself, but I find it funny because when he starts writing, he says, "Olá, amigos. Olá, amigos." So he's writing to everyone who wants
Memoirs.
yes, that sounds great. It was the best of
I
times.
I love Norman.
Yes, wonderful. So whether it's entering the kingdom of heaven or learning Portuguese or living in Portugal, actually, some say there's not a big difference. Be like a child. Cultivate that openness and receptivity and lack of embarrassment that children have, and do your best to engage and have some fun with this. Thanks, Filomena. Thanks, Vicky, Stephen, and James tonight on the screen, and everybody in our audience. And the lovely comment here, the test of when you know you've made it is when you find yourself dreaming in Portuguese. Some of us do. A copo de vinho tinto, a pastel de nata. We all dream in Portuguese already, don't we? Anyway, thanks, everybody. We'll see you at the Premium Lounge in about half an hour. Cheers, Filomena. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Looking for a place to call your own, where the sun shines bright and the seeds are sown. Portugal, it's the place to be. Join the community.